February 9th, 2004. A Monday night in New Hampshire. A 21-year-old nursing student crashes her car on a rural highway. A witness calls 911. Police arrive 7 minutes later. The car is there, doors locked, engine still warm. But Maura Murray is missing. 21 years later, she's still gone. It's 2:14 in the morning. It's been raining on and off all night. One of those cold February rains. The kind of night where I find myself going through old case files. Case files I've been thinking about. And if you're out there listening, maybe you are thinking the same thing I am. A question that's bothered me for 21 years. Where did she go? Who was Maura Murray? Let me tell you who she was before she vanished. Maura Murray was a 21-year-old nursing student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. Dean's List, track athlete. By all accounts, she had her life together. She grew up in Hanson, Massachusetts, close with her family, especially her father, Fred. He'd take her hiking in the White Mountains of New Hampshire when she was younger. I mention that because those mountains, they mattered to this story. In February 2004, Maura was in her junior year. She had a boyfriend, Billy. He was stationed at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, doing Army training. Everything looked normal from the outside. But the weekend before she disappeared, something happened. The weekend before. Saturday, February 7th, 2004. Maura was working her campus security job. Around 1 in the morning, her supervisor found her in the supervisor's office. She was alone, unresponsive. Not drunk, not injured, just shut down. Her supervisor asked what was wrong. Maura wouldn't say, just kept crying. Eventually, she said she'd gotten a phone call from her sister about some family problems. Her supervisor drove her back to her dorm, told her to take care of herself. That was Saturday night. Sunday, Maura stayed in her dorm, didn't go out. Friends said she seemed fine, normal. Monday morning, February 9th, she woke up early. And that's when things started happening that we still can't explain. Monday morning, the preparations. Monday, February 9th, 2004, 7:05 a.m. Maura emailed her professors and her work supervisor, said there'd been a death in the family. She'd be gone for a week. There was no death in the family. Her father confirmed that later. No one had died, no family emergency. So why did she lie? I've seen people lie to buy time before, when they're planning something, when they need an excuse to disappear for a few days without anyone looking for them right away. That morning, Maura went online. She looked up directions to the White Mountains, to Stowe, Vermont, to Burlington, Vermont. She called several hotels and condos in the area, asked about rates, availability. She didn't make a reservation anywhere. Around 1 p.m., she went to an ATM, withdrew $280, nearly all the money in her account. Then she went to a liquor store, bought $40 worth of alcohol, vodka, Bailey's, box of wine. Then she packed her car. She took textbooks, homework, her favorite stuffed animal from childhood, some clothes, toiletries. Not enough for a week, just a few days' worth. Around 3:30 p.m., she got in her 1996 Saturn, black, modest, the kind of car a college student drives, and she left campus, heading north, toward the White Mountains. The drive north. From UMass Amherst to the White Mountains of New Hampshire is about 2.5 hours. Route 141, two-lane highway, rural, quiet, especially in February. We know Maura made it most of the way there, because at 7:27 p.m., her car crashed. Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire, a sharp corner, known locally as the weathered barn curve. Her Saturn hit a snowbank, spun out, came to rest facing the wrong direction, nose damaged, both airbags deployed. The car was drivable, barely, but drivable. A school bus driver named Butch Atwood was heading home. He saw the crash, pulled over, knocked on the window. And that's when he met Maura Murray, for the last time anyone ever would. The witness, Butch Atwood. Butch Atwood was a bus driver, lived just down the road from where Maura crashed. He stopped his bus, got out, asked if she was okay. Maura was standing outside the car, looked shaken but not injured. She told him she was fine. She'd already called AAA. She hadn't called AAA. Her cell phone had no signal there. That area, it's a dead zone. Butch offered to call the police for her. She said no, said she'd already called. I've talked to a lot of people who've just been in car accidents. Some are in shock. Some lie because they're scared. Some lie because they've been drinking. Maura's car had an open container of alcohol. Some wine had spilled. Butch went home, called 911, told them about the crash. 7 minutes later, police arrived. The car was there. Maura was not. The scene. When Haverhill Police Sergeant Cecil Smith arrived at 7:46 p.m., here's what he found. The Saturn. Doors locked. Keys gone. Engine cold but still warm enough that it had been running recently. Both airbags deployed. Windshield cracked from the inside. Passenger side damage from hitting the snowbank. Inside the car, Maura's cell phone, a card belonging to her father, MapQuest directions to Burlington, Vermont, textbooks, homework, an open container of Coke bottle that smelled like alcohol, and a rag stuffed into the tailpipe. That detail, we still don't know what it means. Some people think she was trying to fake car trouble. Others think it's nothing, just a rag that happened to be there. What wasn't in the car? Maura's backpack, her purse, her wallet, her cash. She'd taken those with her when she left. Sergeant Smith searched the area, called her name, shined his flashlight into the woods. Nothing. He called for backup. Canine units, search and rescue. They searched all night. They never found her. The search. I've been involved in plenty of searches before, missing persons in rural areas. It's difficult. The White Mountains in February, it's brutal. Below freezing, snow on the ground, dense forest. Easy to get lost, easy to die of exposure. Search teams worked for days. Dogs tracked a scent from the car about 100 yards east down Route 112. Then the scent just stopped, right at the road. That suggests she got into a vehicle. Either she hitchhiked or someone picked her up, or someone took her. But nobody saw anything. Well, almost nobody. A few people reported seeing a young woman walking near the crash site around the time Maura disappeared. But the descriptions varied. Different colored jackets, different directions. Some of those sightings were probably Maura. Some were probably other people. It was dark. It was snowing. People's memories aren't reliable. What I know from experience, witnesses are wrong more often than they're right. Let's say 80-20. The official search ended after a few days. New Hampshire Fish and Game concluded she'd probably run into the woods and died of exposure. Her father, Fred Murray, didn't accept that. He's been searching for her ever since. The theories. 21 years later, we still don't know what happened to Maura Murray. But there are theories, a lot of them. Let me walk you through the main ones. Theory 1. She ran into the woods and died of exposure. This is what New Hampshire authorities believe. The idea is simple. Maura crashed her car. She'd been drinking. She was afraid of getting a DUI, so she ran into the woods to avoid police. But it was February, below freezing. She wasn't dressed for wilderness survival. She got disoriented. Hypothermia set in. She died somewhere in those woods. The problem with this theory, they searched extensively. Dogs, helicopters, ground teams. They found nothing. No body, clothing, no backpack, nothing. Now, it's possible to miss a body in dense forest. I've seen it happen. But usually, you find something. A shoe, a piece of fabric, something. They found nothing. Theory 2. She hitchhiked and met with foul play. This is what a lot of people believe. The idea, Maura walked east on Route 112, tried to hitchhike. Someone picked her up, and that someone killed her. There's some evidence for this. The dogs tracked her scent to the road, and it stopped. That suggests she got into a vehicle. But who? There's been speculation about local drifters, seasonal workers, someone who happened to be driving through that night. I worked cases where young women were picked up by the wrong person. It happens more than people want to believe. But we have no suspects, no evidence, no witnesses to anyone picking her up. Theory 3. She planned to disappear. This one's complicated. The evidence that supports it. She lied to her professors about a family death. She withdrew most of her money. She looked up directions to multiple locations. She brought alcohol, maybe planning to spend a few days alone in the mountains. Some people think she was running away, from school, from relationships, from pressure. The problem, if she planned to disappear, why crash the car? Why not just drive to wherever she was going and start over? And if she did disappear intentionally, she's done a hell of a job staying hidden for 21 years. No bank activity, no social media, no sightings that panned out. Disappearing completely is harder than people think. Theory 4. Someone she knew picked her up. This is the theory I keep coming back to. What if Maura called someone before she left campus? What if she arranged for someone to meet her? What if the crash wasn't part of the plan, but when it happened, that person still picked her up? The problem, her phone records don't show any suspicious calls that day, and everyone close to her has been accounted for. Her boyfriend Billy was at Fort Sill. Her father was in Connecticut. Her friends were at campus or at home. So who? I don't know. The investigation. I'm going to be honest with you. The investigation into Maura Murray's disappearance, it wasn't handled well. Not because the police didn't care, but because they made assumptions early on. And once you assume something, it's hard to see past it. The assumption was college student, car accident, drinking, ran into the woods, died of exposure, case closed. But it's not closed, because they didn't find a body. The New Hampshire State Police treated this as a missing persons case, not a criminal investigation. That means certain things didn't happen that should have. They didn't secure the car as evidence right away. It sat in a tow yard for days. They didn't process the scene as a potential crime scene. No forensics or detailed documentation. By the time people started questioning the exposure theory, the evidence was gone. I've seen this before. In cases where initial assumptions turn out to be wrong, you can't go back. You can't recollect evidence that's been sitting in a tow yard for a week. It's frustrating. Maura's father, Fred Murray, has pushed for answers for 21 years. He's hired private investigators. He's organized searches. He's fought with police for access to records. He believes someone took his daughter. I don't know if he's right, but I understand why he can't let it go. The Internet. Maura Murray's case became one of the first missing persons cases to go viral on the Internet. Forums, blogs, Reddit threads, podcasts, documentaries. Thousands of people have spent thousands of hours analyzing every detail, every phone call, every witness statement and possible theory. Some of that's been helpful. Some of it's been less helpful. I've seen amateur investigators uncover things police missed. I've also seen them harass innocent people based on wild speculation. The Internet is good at keeping cases alive, but it's also good at creating noise. In 2017, New Hampshire State Police announced they were treating Maura's disappearance as a criminal investigation, not just a missing person. That was 13 years after she vanished. Better late than never, I guess. But the reality is, after 13 years, most physical evidence is gone. Witnesses' memories have faded. Suspects have died or moved away. The chances of solving this case get smaller every year. What I think. After 30 years of working cases, I've learned to trust patterns. Here's what I see in Maura Murray's case. She was planning something. The fake email to professors, the cash withdrawal, the alcohol, the directions to multiple locations. She was going somewhere. Maybe to think. Maybe to disappear for a few days. Maybe something else. Then she crashed, and I think someone picked her up. Maybe she flagged down a car. Maybe someone stopped to help. Maybe it was someone she knew. But I think that person is the reason she never came home. I don't think she died of exposure. The dogs would have found something. I don't think she's hiding somewhere, living under a new identity. That's movie stuff. In real life, people leave traces. I think someone took her, either by force or by offering help. And I think that someone knows what happened to her. That's just my gut, not evidence, just 30 years of doing this work. The unanswered questions. There are so many questions in this case. Why did Maura lie about a family emergency? Where was she really going? Why did she pack for a few days but research hotels she didn't book? What was the phone call on Saturday night that left her so upset? Why was there a rag in the tailpipe? Who did the dogs track heading east on Route 112? If she got into a vehicle, whose vehicle was it? And the biggest question, where is Maura Murray? Is she in the woods somewhere, still unfound after 21 years? Is she buried somewhere else? Is there any chance at all, that she's alive? Nobody knows. The family. Fred Murray is 81 years old now. He spent more than 2 decades searching for his daughter. He's organized searches, hired investigators, put up billboards, done interviews, fought for case files. I've met fathers like Fred, fathers who can't stop searching. There was a case I worked in '98. Young woman disappeared from a rest stop. Her father searched for 16 years. Every weekend, every vacation, just drove around, looked, asked questions. He died without ever finding her. Some people think Fred should accept that Maura is gone, that he should grieve and move on. But I understand why he can't. Because without a body, there's always hope. And hope is what keeps you going. Even when logic says to stop, even when your heart knows the truth. Where the case stands. New Hampshire State Police still have Maura's case listed as an active investigation. They receive tips occasionally, follow up when something seems credible. But the reality is, after 21 years, The leads have dried up. Witnesses have passed away. Memories have faded. Physical evidence is gone. Every few years there is renewed attention. A documentary, a podcast, an anniversary. And for a few weeks, people pay attention again. Then it fades. Until the next time. Maura Murray's case has become one of those unsolved mysteries that people can't let go of. Not because we're close to solving it, but because it feels solvable. All the pieces are there. The timeline, the evidence, the witness. We just can't put them together. Closing. Well, it's 4:13 in the morning now. I've been sitting here thinking about Maura Murray, 21 years old, her whole life ahead of her. She got in her car one Monday afternoon, drove north toward the mountains, and vanished. Somewhere, someone knows what happened. Maybe it's the person who picked her up on Route 112. Maybe it's someone who saw something that night and never came forward. Maybe it's someone who found her in the woods, never reported it. Someone knows. They just haven't told anyone yet. Go to sleep. I'll be here tomorrow night. Same frequency. It's 2:34 in the morning. Columbus, Ohio, April 1st, 2006. A medical student walks into a bar with his friends. Spring break, last night before the pressure starts again. Security cameras cover the entrance. Every person who walks in walks back out. Every person except one. His name was Brian Shaffer, 27 years old, second-year med student. Pearl Jam tattoo on his right arm. He walked into the ugly Tuna Saloon at 1:15 in the morning. The cameras never saw him leave. I've worked missing persons cases for 30 years. I've never seen anything like this. Tonight, that's the case I can't stop thinking about. As always, what you're about to hear is my interpretation, based on publicly available information. I wasn't there. These are the questions that won't let me sleep, not answers. The case that shouldn't exist. I came across the Brian Shaffer case in 2008. I was working a string of missing persons cases in Philadelphia, and another detective mentioned it during a conference. The bar with no exit, he called it. That phrase stuck with me. The bar with no exit. At first I thought, impossible. People don't just vanish from buildings. There's always an explanation. A camera malfunction, a blind spot, human error in reviewing the footage. I've worked cases where security footage was misread, where timestamps were wrong, where someone reviewing hundreds of hours of tape just missed something. It happens. But the more I learned about this case, the more that certainty started to crack. The Columbus Police Department reviewed that footage obsessively. Multiple detectives, multiple times, frame by frame. One detective, a guy named Andre Edwards, told reporters he could state with 100% certainty that Brian Shaffer did not leave through the main entrance. 100%. In my experience, detectives don't use that phrase lightly. So if he didn't leave through the entrance, where did he go? Sometimes, the impossible is just what happened. Who he was. Brian Randall Shaffer, 27 years old, second-year medical student at Ohio State University. In the photographs from before that night, you see someone who looks tired, but hopeful. Dark hair, warm smile, band t-shirts. Pearl Jam tattoo on his right arm, that little stick figure from the Alive single cover. He loved that band, had been to multiple concerts, told his friends his real dream wasn't medicine but starting a band like Jimmy Buffett. Tropical music, beach lifestyle, something far away from the pressure of med school and all-nighters. It's a thought that sticks with me. I sometimes wonder how many of us live the life we're expected to live instead of the one we want. Brian was a good student, smart, dedicated, but there was this other side of him, this creative, free-spirited side that wanted to play music on a beach somewhere. His girlfriend, Alexis Wagoner, had been with him for 2 years. They met through mutual friends. By all accounts, they were serious, planning a future together. She believed he was going to propose to her that spring. They had a trip to Miami planned for April 3rd, just 3 days after that night at the bar. He never made that flight, never popped the question. But to understand what happened on April 1st, you have to understand what happened just 3 weeks earlier. March 6th. Brian's mother, Renee Shaffer, died on March 6, 2006. She'd been diagnosed with a rare form of bone cancer, myelodysplasia. It progressed quickly, aggressively. Brian was devastated. By all accounts, he was close with his mother. She'd supported his decision to go to medical school even though it meant years of stress and debt. She believed in him. And then she was gone. I've seen what sudden loss does to people, especially young people who aren't prepared for it. It doesn't just hurt you. It disorients you. Makes you question everything. Your path, your choices, your future. Friends said Brian seemed to be holding it together on the surface, still going to classes, still studying, still making plans. But there were cracks. He'd apparently told Alexis at one point during those 3 weeks that she should leave him, find someone else, that he was in a dark place and didn't want to drag her down. She refused. She loved him. She wasn't going anywhere. His father, Randy Shaffer, had dinner with Brian on March 31st, the night before spring break, the night before everything changed. Randy noticed his son looked exhausted. Brian had been pulling all-nighters, cramming for exams before the break. Randy thought maybe Brian shouldn't go out that night, but he didn't say anything. Brian was an adult. He could make his own decisions. That's another thing I often think about too. The things we don't say, the moments we let pass. Randy never saw his son again. The night, early hours. Here is what we know. April 1st, 2006, the first night of spring break. At 9 p.m., Brian met his friend William Florence, everyone called him Clint, at a bar called the Ugly Tuna Saloon. The Ugly Tuna. Even the name sounds like something from a different era. It was a college bar on the second floor of a building on North High Street, right in the campus area. You reached it by escalator, one main entrance, one emergency exit, and a service door in back that led to a construction site. It was busy that night. Spring break, students celebrating. The place was packed. Brian and Clint started drinking around 9. Beer, shots, the usual college bar routine. Around 10 p.m., Brian stepped outside to call Alexis. He told her he loved her, confirmed their Miami plans, said he'd see her soon. That was the last time she heard his voice. After the call, Brian and Clint decided to explore, bar hopping down High Street. They hit several places, the Arena District, Short North, doing shots, getting progressively more intoxicated. Around midnight, they ran into Meredith Reed, a friend of Clint's. She offered them a ride back to the Ugly Tuna for one more round. Security footage logged shows all 3 of them going up the escalator at 1:15 a.m. Brian, Clint, and Meredith, back at the Ugly Tuna for that final drink. They ordered drinks, talked, laughed. Just 3 friends at a bar. At some point, we don't know exactly when, Brian separated from his friends. Maybe he went to the bathroom. Maybe he wanted to talk to someone. Maybe he just needed air. All speculation. We don't know. This is what we do know. The next time he appears on camera is the last time anyone ever saw him. 1:55 a.m. The footage is grainy, black and white, the kind of security camera quality from 2006. Brian appears outside the bar at the top of the escalator. He's wearing a white t-shirt with a dark, short-sleeved button-up over it. Jeans. He looks casual, relaxed. He's talking to two young women, saying goodbye, it looks like. Casual conversation. Maybe exchanging numbers. Maybe just being friendly. Nothing unusual. The women turn and head down the escalator, and then Brian turns and walks back toward the bar entrance, off camera. Gone. I've watched that footage several times. The way he moves. He doesn't look distressed, doesn't look like someone being followed or threatened. Just a guy at a bar heading back inside for another drink or two, or to find his friends. Normal. And then, nothing. 5 minutes later at 2 a.m. the bar closed. Last call. Lights up. Everyone out. Clint and Meredith waited at the top of the escalator trying to call Brian. No answer. They texted. No response. They figured he'd left without telling them. Maybe got a ride home. Maybe met someone. It was annoying but not alarming. College kids do that sometimes. So they do what anyone would do that night. They left, went their separate ways. But Brian never went home. And here's what makes this case so baffling. The security cameras did their job. Show every single person who entered that bar. Also leaving. The search begins. When Brian missed his Miami flight on Monday morning, April 3rd, Alexis started to worry. She called him. No answer. Called again. Voicemail. She called his apartment. His roommate said Brian hadn't come home Saturday night. By Monday afternoon, she was panicking. This wasn't like him. He wouldn't just disappear. Not with their trip. Not without telling anyone. His father, Randy, reported him missing Monday evening. The Columbus Police Department started their investigation immediately. Standard protocol for a missing person. Interview the last known contacts, review footage, build a timeline. I've run this playbook hundreds of times. You start with the people closest to the missing person. The girlfriend. The friends. You look for inconsistencies. You watch body language during interviews. They talked to Clint. They talked to Meredith. Both said the same thing. Brian just disappeared at some point. They figured he left on his own. Then they went to Brian's apartment, 6 blocks from the bar. His car was still there. A beat-up Mitsubishi Eclipse parked on the street. Now, in my experience, when someone disappears voluntarily, the car is usually one of the first things to go. You need transportation. You need mobility. But Brian's car? Still there. Inside the apartment, everything was normal. Too normal. His wallet on the dresser, his keys, his phone charging by the bed. That's when you know something's wrong. His credit cards. I've checked missing persons cases where someone's trying to disappear. They always slip up eventually. Use a card for gas, for food, something. Brian's cards? Not a single transaction since that night. Bank accounts, untouched. Cell phone, off. Or dead. No signal, no pings. In 30 years, I've never seen someone vanish this completely without leaving a trace. Not unless they had help, or they didn't leave by choice. It was like he'd just stopped existing. The search expanded, and this is where it gets intensive. Police brought in dogs, cadaver dogs. There's a handler I worked with once who insisted on giving his dog ridiculous names. Called one of them Sherlock Bones. Said it helped him cope with the work. I get that. Sometimes you need something to hold on to when you're searching for the worst. They combed every dumpster within a mile radius. Sewers, rooftops, parking garages. All the places a body might end up in an urban area. Searches like this wear on you. They are methodical, exhausting. You check every shadow, every space, every place someone could be hidden or could have fallen. The dogs hit on something near the construction site behind the bar. When dogs alert like that, your heart sinks, because usually they're right. They brought in equipment, started excavating, carefully, looking for anything. Nothing. No body, no clothing, no evidence. False positive. Or maybe something was there once and got moved. You never really know. The two women Brian spoke to at 1:55, the last people to see him on camera, were eventually tracked down and interviewed. They were students, Ohio State. They'd been at the bar with friends, just a normal night out. They remembered Brian. Nice guy, a little drunk, friendly conversation for a minute or two. Nothing weird, nothing that set off alarms. He seemed fine. They left, went down the escalator. He went back inside. That's all they knew, and I believed them. These women had no reason to lie, no connection to Brian beyond a brief conversation. Unfortunately, they were just the last people to see him. Now here's where it gets interesting. Everyone Brian was with that night was asked to take polygraph tests. Alexis, his girlfriend, agreed immediately. Passed. Meredith, Clint's friend who gave them the ride, agreed. Passed. Randy, Brian's father, even agreed to take one. He wanted to eliminate himself as a suspect, help move the investigation forward. He passed. Clint Florence refused. Now, I need to be very careful here because I've advised people not to take polygraphs. They're not reliable as people think. They're not admissible in court. They measure stress responses, not truth. If you're nervous, if you're grieving, if you feel guilty about something unrelated, the machine picks that up too. So refusing a polygraph? By itself, it doesn't mean guilt. But in context, it's notable. Clint was the last person known to be with Brian before he disappeared. Clint and Brian had argued that night, and Clint wouldn't take the test. Does that mean he hurt Brian? No, not necessarily. Does it mean he's hiding something? Maybe. Or maybe he just got good legal advice and decided not to risk it. But when everyone else agrees and one person refuses, people notice, including me. The friend who said no. Let's take a step back. Clint's refusal in itself doesn't mean anything, but it's notable, especially in the context of everything else. Clint and Brian had reportedly argued that night. Nobody knows what about. Maybe something small, maybe something bigger. I've seen friendships end over borrowed money, over a girl, over nothing at all when alcohol's involved. College friends argue. It happens. After the argument, Brian walked away. That's normal too. But Clint was the last person known to have been with Brian before he disappeared, and he wouldn't take the test. In my experience, when everyone else in a case agrees to help move the investigation forward, and one person doesn't, it raises questions. Not accusations, just questions. I don't know what that means. Maybe it means nothing. Maybe he just didn't want to deal with it. Maybe his lawyer, and he had every right to get one, advised against it. Or maybe there's something he didn't want to talk about. Clint has never publicly discussed the case in detail. He's given a few brief statements over the years, but mostly he's stayed silent. I understand that too. Being the last person to see someone alive, that's a burden. Even if you did nothing wrong, even if you have nothing to hide, people look at you differently. Every time the case comes up, your name comes up. For 20 years, Clint Florence has been the friend who wouldn't take the polygraph. That follows you. But silence creates questions. And questions, they don't age well. The theories. I've spent a couple years thinking about this case. How does someone walk into a building and not walk out? There are really only a few possibilities. Let me walk through them. Theory 1. Simple. He left through the service door. The ugly tuna had a back service exit. It led through employee areas, past the kitchen, through storage rooms, to a door that opened onto an active construction site. It wasn't monitored by cameras. If Brian wanted to leave without being seen, or if he was disoriented and looking for a bathroom or another exit, he could have gone that way. The problem? The lead investigator said it would be difficult to navigate that area sober, let alone intoxicated. You'd have to know where you were going, or get very lucky. But it's possible. Maybe Brian needed air. Maybe he was looking for a back way out. Maybe he was drunk and confused. If he went out that service door, he would have ended up in a construction site. Unfinished floors, exposed rebar, dark. Could he have fallen, gotten hurt, gotten disoriented in the construction zone and wandered off? The police searched that area extensively, multiple times. Cadaver dogs, ground-penetrating radar. They found nothing. But construction sites are complex. Equipment gets moved. Concrete gets poured. If Brian fell into something, a hole, a shaft, an area that was then sealed up, he might still be there, hidden, entombed. Theory 2. He disguised himself and left through the main entrance. This one's been floated by amateur sleuths online. Reddit mostly. There's a whole community dedicated to this case. Hundreds of people analyzing that security footage frame by frame, building theories. Some think Brian changed his appearance somehow, put on a hat, borrowed a jacket from someone, something, and walked out blending in with the crowd at closing time. The cameras wouldn't have recognized him. I've looked at those Reddit threads. Some of the theories are, let's say, creative. But every once in a while, someone notices something the professionals missed. It happens. But this disguise theory? I don't buy it. But why? Why would a medical student, days away from a vacation with his girlfriend, suddenly decide to disappear? His family insists there was no reason. No financial troubles, no legal issues, no secret life. Alexis insists he was happy, planning their future. And if he did leave voluntarily, why hasn't there been a single transaction on his credit cards, a single ping from his phone, a single sighting in 20 years? People who disappear voluntarily usually slip up, use an ATM, call someone, get spotted eventually. Brian? Nothing. Not one trace. That's not someone starting a new life. That's someone who's vanished. Theory 3. He never left the building. This is the one that bothers me most. What if Brian didn't leave? What if something happened inside the bar, and he's still there? The ugly tuna had multiple levels, crawl spaces, storage areas. The building itself was undergoing renovations. There were closed-off sections, unfinished areas. What if Brian, drunk and disoriented, wandered into a closed area, fell, got trapped? Or worse, what if someone hurt him inside the bar and hid his body somewhere in the building? The building's been searched, multiple times, but buildings are complicated. Walls, ceiling spaces, sub-basements, HVAC systems. If someone wanted to hide a body in a building under renovation, they could. The ugly tuna eventually closed. The building was renovated again. New businesses moved in. If Brian was hidden somewhere in that structure, They might have built right over him. Theory 4. Foul play by someone he knew. This is the theory I keep circling back to. What if someone Brian knew, maybe someone at the bar, maybe Clint, maybe someone else, hurt him? The argument with Clint, what was that about? Was it really just a small disagreement? Or was there something deeper? Brian's mother had just died. He was emotionally vulnerable, drinking heavily. Maybe he said something, did something, made someone angry. Maybe the argument escalated outside, away from cameras. Maybe someone followed him into that construction site. Maybe it wasn't random at all. Columbus police have said they have 3 specific theories about what happened to Brian, but they won't discuss them publicly. That tells me they suspect someone. They might even know who, but they don't have enough evidence to prove it. 20 years later, they're still receiving tips, still investigating. But Brian Shaffer is still missing. The phone. 5 months after Brian disappeared, something strange happened. Alexis had been calling his cell phone every night, every single night since he disappeared. She knew it was pointless. The phone was off or dead. It always went straight to voicemail. But she called anyway, just to hear his voice on the voicemail greeting, just to feel connected to him somehow. Then one night in September 2006, the phone rang. Not voicemail, it actually rang. She wrote about it later on her MySpace page. I kept calling it purely because it was one of the best sounds I have ever heard, even if no one picked up. Multiple calls. It kept ringing, but no one answered. The call pinged a cell tower in Hilliard, Ohio, a suburb west of Columbus, about 15 miles from where Brian disappeared. The phone company investigated. They said it might have been a computer glitch. Sometimes systems ping old numbers, false readings. Or maybe, just maybe, someone had Brian's phone and turned it on, just for a moment. Was it Brian? Alive somewhere, letting Alexis know he was okay? Or was it someone else? Someone who'd taken the phone that night? We don't know. The phone went dead again after that night. It's never been used since. The father. Randy Shaffer, Brian's father, became consumed with finding his son. He followed every lead, every tip, every wild theory. He appeared on talk shows, crime programs, anywhere that would let him talk about Brian. He hired private investigators, put up billboards, created websites. He refused to believe Brian was dead. He refused to give up. In interviews, you can see the weight of it, the exhaustion, the desperate hope that maybe, somehow, Brian would come home. In September 2008, 2.5 years after Brian disappeared, Randy died in a freak accident. He was moving a large tree branch during a storm. The branch hit power lines. He was electrocuted. Gone. Just like that. Brian's mother had died of cancer. Now his father was gone too. Brian's younger brother Derek was the only immediate family left. I think about Derek, living with the weight of not knowing. His mother dead, his father dead, his brother somewhere or nowhere. Poor kid. How do you move forward from that? What I think. I don't know what happened to Brian Shaffer. Wish I did. I wish I could tell you he walked out that service door and started a new life somewhere. That he's on a beach playing music like he always wanted. But 20 years without a trace? No financial activity, no sightings, no body, no contact with anyone he loved. That's not someone who left voluntarily. I think something happened that night. Something quick. Something that left no obvious evidence. My gut, and it's just a gut feeling, nothing I could prove, is that Brian went out that back service door. Maybe he needed air. Maybe he was looking for another way out. Maybe he was drunk and confused. And in that construction site, in the dark, something unfortunate happened. Maybe he fell. He encountered someone. Maybe he was hurt and couldn't get help. Or maybe someone followed him out there. Someone who'd argued with him earlier. Someone who wanted to hurt him. I don't know. What bothers me most is the phone ping in September. That's the detail I can't let go of. If it was a glitch, fine. Case closed on that detail. But if it wasn't, if someone really turned that phone on 5 months later, who was it? And why? Was it Brian trying to reach out? Or was it someone else, holding on to a dead man's phone? I don't know. And it's not knowing. That's what makes a case like this so hard to let go of. Alexis. Alexis Wagoner eventually moved on with her life. I mean, you have to. She graduated, got married to someone else, started a family. But for years, she kept a blog, kept Brian's memory alive, wrote about what it was like to lose someone without ever having closure. She wrote about that phone call in September, about how hearing it ring was the best and worst moment, hope and heartbreak at the same time. She wrote about the Miami trip they never took, the proposal she believes was coming, the future they'd planned. She wrote about how you learn to live with not knowing, because what's the alternative? Brian's brother Derek has also spoken about the case over the years. He maintains a Facebook page dedicated to finding Brian, still shares tips, still hopes. 20 years later, the case remains open. Officially, Brian Shaffer is a missing person. But nobody, not the police, not his family, not his friends, really believes he's alive. They just want to know what happened. They want to bring him home. The last image. Let's look back at that security footage. 1:55 a.m., Brian at the top of the escalator, talking to those two women, smiling, turning back toward the bar. He looks so normal. Just a guy at a bar, a little drunk, tired, but okay. And then he walks back toward that entrance, off camera, and he's gone. How does that happen? How does someone just stop existing? 27 years old, medical student, whole life ahead of him, a girlfriend who loved him, a trip to Miami waiting, and then nothing. Just a grainy security video and a family that still doesn't have answers. Where did he go? I don't know, and maybe we never will. But I'll keep thinking about it, about that security footage, about the service door, about the phone that rang 5 months later in Hilliard, about a young man who wanted to play music on a beach instead of becoming a doctor, about his mother who died 3 weeks before he disappeared, about his father who searched until the day he died, about Alexis still calling that phone number, hoping to hear it ring one more time. Some cases you solve, some cases solve themselves over time, and some cases they just stay with you, unanswered, unresolved. Brian Shaffer walked into the ugly Tuna Saloon on April 1st, 2006. 20 years later, his family is still waiting for him to walk back out. Well, it's almost 3 in the morning now. I should try to get some sleep. Emphasis on the word try. There's always another case or question that keeps walking around in my mind. Another person who walked into the world and didn't walk back out. Maybe next week I'll tell you about one of them. Until then, try to rest. I'll be here if you can't.